mountains that celebrate deserts.
Yeah.
All the way from Karakoram to
that's true.
Arabian Sea. And then you have Mahabharata,
Yeah.
which is the longest poem in world literature.
But true.
Yeah, and so, I mean, recently I was reading an article, some friend sent it to me from India, and the person says, the Hindi belt, you could include Urdu belt as well,
Yeah.
has produced people who have, who have played a very important role in literary traditions. But when you compare them with the South,
Yeah.
India, for example, Gujarat and further south, you have people who can manage the economy, who have the Baniya, background, very smart people,
Yeah.
people who generally are pacifistic, unlike the people from the north, who are more outgoing and all. So I was just wondering that all this presentation that you gave is wonderful. I mean, the whole journey, all the way from, but within South Asian tradition, you see lots of diversity, you see lots of richness, and it goes back, centuries back. And I don't want to bring in Persian literature, but I mean, long before these romantics of 19th century.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Hafiz.
Yeah.
Hafiz is the most famous, classical
Hafiz is
romantic poet, 13th century.
Yeah.
Umar Khayyam. So I was just wondering that all these traditions that you're talking about, do they have any connection with the old East?
It's a good question.
The diversity of and are you influenced by some of those guys?
It's a very good question and quite, elaborate one. That helped me, I think, speak on it. Basically, I have taken all these eras and movements, which have remained as eras and movements well around. Of course, we have the characters, we have the poets, we had a lot of stuff in our past, more than even they have here.
Yeah.
But all these movements, they have remained detached from all these movements I have been speaking of. In spite of the fact Ghalib was in the 19th century, he could be a romantic poet. But he did not know what is romanticism. Because he was not bothered, he didn't know about it, and there was no need again. It was the creativity of William Wordsworth and these people in 1798, when they thought, after the Industrial Revolution, which was quite strong and quite stringent here than in India those years, they believed, now since we are being encircled by these industrialists and other issues, everything is to be followed in discipline, even poetry. They reacted. It was a reaction. In time of Ghalib, for instance, or even in time of Hafiz, who was the prime, instigator to Goethe from Germany. Goethe was quite inspired from him. And he has written a whole book on Holy Prophet, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, having just been inspired by poetry of Hafiz. He was romantic himself. Hafiz was not romantic. He did not belong to romantic age, though his poetry has romance in it. Romance has over 1,000 meanings. If we take all these meanings, we have even Mahabharata was romantic. As you give all examples, they are perfect. But if we take it from the movement as I've been speaking, none of them falls in that, because none of them thought of coming to that. Because these were the reactions that kept on in the European world. And since I wrote English, poetry, I had to put it somewhere within the context. Otherwise, it would be out of context. For instance, if we look at Rumi's poetry, Maulana Rumi, he was quite influential on Shah Abdul Latif and on Allama Iqbal, simultaneously. Both were influenced by him, and even they used to refer to him in a number of poems. But that has led none of those poets to belong to any of the movements, because there was no kind of any single trace of these movements. Yeah, modernism we had. In the time of modernism, especially after First and Second World War, the impact of existentialism started by Jean-Paul Sartre in France. That had led an impact on the people, and the people started supporting socialism on the basis of existentialism, because that had some connections with it, because of Jean-Paul Sartre, because he was quite political as well and was a novelist. Then we have works in especially Abdullah Hussein's even Al-Qadriya and another one, Raja Gif. We have the elements and traces of existentialism touching those philosophies of the Western in those novels. But in poetry, we have little bit of this only in the time of Fez. When you read Fez, you are basically reading the West as well, because he is also influenced by those. Those were the years when modernists were quite stronger. Here, the postmodernists had prevailed, but the impact of modernism was there, still in the subcontinent. So you will see a number of poems by Fez reflecting socialism and even communism, or the impact in the favor of the people who are not who are imprisoned from anyway, mentally or physically or whatever. So I think none of them belong to the tribe for this.
Why should Europe be the reference for all kinds of literary traditions? Why Europe should be the reference? If Romanticism develops in late 18th century, why Romanticism should develop in India or Iran or China at the same time? Why? Why Europe has to be the reference?
I believe, it's again first question why.
Rabindranath Tagore influenced Europe and America more than anybody else.
Rabindranath Tagore, yeah.
It was celebrating his 150th anniversary, so East was influencing.
That's another issue.
Emerson and Thoreau were influenced by Saudi.
Transcendentalism, yeah.
So I'm saying that Europe should not really, I'm not being defensive about
that's true, you should have right.
Yeah, but why Europe should define the rest of the world?
It doesn't define, I think. The structure we have gone through, this only defines those movements who came after each other as a reaction to each other. And the result is this present scenario we have in the world in English poetry. So far as influence is concerned, this is a totally different topic and a very, very important topic to discuss on. You can have a number of things. If you go to Renaissance, you can have a lot of examples how Europe was influenced. And then you have 19th century, 20th century, Rabindranath Tagore, many others. They were quite propagators of, he was given Nobel Prize. Why? But there are certain things in that. And I think this issue and even other issues can be highlighted somewhere. They may need a number of hours to work on it and deliberate, and so yeah.
I have a question about sort of mixing languages in poetry. I mean, this Pablo Neruda and Garcia Marquez. I'm wondering, do they find it easier because they're mixing two sort of languages that are derivative of Latin? I mean, how easy is it for you to, so do you speak Urdu or
yeah, okay.
Yeah, but so my question is, how easy is it for you to write poetry or even combine both Urdu and English together? Is it possible at all?
If you are asking the possibility, yes, it is possible.
No, right, but how?
It's possible. I mean, yeah, it's possible. I
mean, for you personally, and but also just as a general, a normal poet.
If we make it simple, if we speak on the technicalities as to whether it is possible technically, yeah, it is. Now the second question is, should it be done or not? Perhaps you're referring to that.
Yeah.
But this is the question which postmodernists say, rather claim, that we can. We should be mixing. Even as I told earlier, that you can even use those proper terminology jargons in your poetry. If you're writing on a frog, for instance, and you want to name some organ of the body of the frog, you can give the medical name as well, no problem. They said it. But earlier, it was, something which was not supported from any angle. If you're speaking in English, then it's okay. But in Urdu, I don't think so. I don't think so. That's how it goes.
What about you write in Sindhi as well?
Yeah.
So what about the state of Sindhi language in Pakistan? It's one of the smaller languages.
It's in the transitional phase, as Urdu is, I think.
I mean, how do you see the future in a country like Pakistan?
I think I'm quite hopeful, I'm quite optimistic. Not on the ground that I have to be optimist, that's why I'm being optimist, but I believe you have all the sides, positive and negative. Of course, issues in my country, in our country, is about reading of books. Generally, if you speak about whole country, this affects even the province as well. So the whole country is affected by that. I read in 2003 that somewhere that the books in the whole Muslim world which are translated in 1 year are thrice translated in Germany in 1 year.
It's the UN Human Development
2003. Yeah. Now this is the condition, and even then Europe says we do not have writers. This is the question to me, a big question, three-dimensional big question. If from this angle, yeah, there are problems. But again, after I think we understand the things and we try to practically do something, we can produce a little bit change.
The best literature is coming out from Pakistan now.
I believe, yeah.
Because of all the turbulence, and mostly the young people, new generation.
Yeah, that's true, absolutely right. That's
well,
true.
Some of the top-notch writers in English, Urdu, local from Sindhi,
and the global impact, social and acculturation, that's working on.
Does it affect your poetry as well? The turbulence?
Yeah, you can't be. I mean, you have to be a robot in order not to be affected.
True.
This affects.
And then what I meant was that how do you see the future of the smaller provincial languages in Pakistan?
I'm hopeful about
becoming more
this is a very, very tricky question in a way, because the situation is quite complicated, fluid. You can't say something stable. And secondly, once the conditions get better, only then we can be in a position. I don't know what's the real structure to be in future, whether it's going to improve or something, I don't know. I am in bureaucracy, but I don't think so it can. At least easily in the recent coming here, impending, I don't think so.
Book is out. Even Amazon, Waterstone has been already sold. They were running losses to the volume of 35 million. It's Kindle, it's e-book. And Pakistanis, Indians are very good at it. Could that be a way forward? If people have these gadgets, and they could read maybe poetry, maybe short stories, not heavy stuff on the screen.
That would be fantabulous. Fantabulous.
Because books are being unpopular here as well. Books are, of course there are people who love books, but it's the e-book.
This is, I think, again, it is a book.
Maybe countries like Pakistan, this is where e-book is an asset.
We refer to a book reading, if you put it this way, if we speak about the book, we are referring to the material in the book.
Yes.
Then it's okay, there is no book, we are reading the books through e-books, iPad and iPod or something.
Yes.
But if you are referring to the book as a copy where there are pages and a hard binding or something, then of course, yeah, you're right.
Because even here people can't afford a book.
Yeah.
I needed to...
It's quite costly.
I need to review this book on Pakistan by a friend of mine, Anatol Levan. I had to pay £30 yesterday. And £30 I wouldn't spend on a book. I would rather wait until it becomes second-hand. So it's very expensive. But Kindle, what I'm saying, Kindle and these things are the way forward for countries like Pakistan. If people can't afford them here, how can they afford them in
e-books aren't that cheap. They are just
you could have access at least.
Yeah. It's more convenient.
Yeah, more convenient.
I think this is the opportunity for our people, because it's not
like Facebook, millions of them are doing all this kind of stuff already.
Yeah.
So maybe this is the way forward for people like you, who are working with the government, who are making the policy.
I hope so. Optimistic. Yeah, I am. I believe so. We are working on it. But let's see, because it's a big challenge.
Is there any other Sheikh Ayaz in Sindhi?
I hope so. Going to be in future.
Yeah. Sheikh Ayaz is the Shakespeare of Sindhi.
Malik.
The pastor.
So anyways, Darwin, thanks for your love and your care and your passionate hearing and your participation. Wonderful, and it was good, making it quite, enjoyable, interesting. And
Thank you.
Again, we have a memento as well for you, Ibrahim. So thanks a lot for coming.
Oh my God,
Thank you.